Hey everybody, how you doing? It's your man Jay Kevin here with our special guest today, Mr. Anthony and Mrs. April Hill. Today we're going to be talking about mental health during the Great Reset. We're going to talk about how to take care of, your mind and your thoughts as we go through some of the what's for a lot of people tough times. It seems like there's a lot going on in today's world. I know 2020 has been kind of rough for a lot of people out there, just looking at some of the statistics and the news and looking at some of the numbers and some of the things that's going on out there. I know that 2020 is rough and tough for a lot of people. For some other people, it may not be so bad, but just looking at the way things are going, I know it is. And so I decided to come on today and have a conversation with my near and dear friends who work in the mental health space. Is that a safe way to say it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, just working in the mental health space and working with people who go through some trying circumstances and some difficult circumstances. If you live long enough, we all go through some transitions, multiple transitions in life that we all have to learn how to maneuver through and kind of adjust to, so that we can get settled in to the way things go in our life. So, if you would just explain who you are, and maybe give a little bit about your background and what you do and why you do, and why you decided to kind of start having conversations around mental health and with current events and with the way things are going.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Do you want me to go ahead and start
Yeah,
first?
you can
I'm just
start
going to
first.
just kind of give a little bit of my background. So I am a licensed clinical social worker, and so I work with actually the veteran population.
Mhm.
And so there's so many hats or so many roles in the VA of social work, and so one aspect is definitely mental health. And so, I don't know if you want to kind of go into what your
I'm a school social worker. I'm a certified school social worker. So I work in the elementary school, and I just work with a lot of the kids as far as kids that are dealing with behavior issues and social issues and things of that nature. So
Cool, that's awesome. And just seeing that, you guys are like hitting a broad spectrum of the population. And when you said the veterans area, thinking about how I know that, in recent times, and then I know that during this year, specifically, the veterans have been touched and have felt a lot of the impact as far as the way things are going. And then I know that, Antony, just looking at, my kids and some of their friends and stuff, I know that, this 2020 and in recent times, near recent times, that population is really being impacted and affected, and I dare say traumatized to a certain extent,
mhm.
with respect to like some of the things that's been implemented in our work, in our society and culture, as far as like social distancing and
yeah.
covering our faces. Regardless of how one may feel about some of the practices and stuff that's been implemented, that we all do, we cannot deny the effect
Mhm.
that some of the things that's taking place in our world, how it's affecting us mentally, which affects us physically, and which affects us as far as our heart and our emotions too. So,
Absolutely.
I titled the show "The Great Reset," and one of the reasons why I did that is that I often watch non-governmental organizations like Davos, like the World Economic Forum,
Mhm.
and like the Rockefeller Foundation, and during like the beginning of 2020, after things started to take shape with respect to the pandemic, uh, the World Economic Forum came out with a report, or with some articles and some things, a manifesto, I guess, titled "The Great Reset," and it had a button as far as on the manifesto or on the article or whatever, the report. It had a button like a video game button that you push if you want to reset the game.
Mhm.
So in the article, you can see in the report, it's very clear that 2020 is looked at as an opportunity that can be taken advantage of when talking about resetting the way society and the way things are moving. And then also I was looking at, I think it was a Rockefeller report. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and look. But it was a report talking about reset the table. So I'm thinking, like, why is that word being thrown around so much during 2020? And what are these in these two specific reports? One was talking about the resetting of every area of our society and how we interact with each other, transferring us into a more digital age. And then reset the table was talking about food and food production and resetting the table in that fashion. So do you guys want to comment any on that, or, before we move on?
Anything that comes to mind for you?
When he was talking, who had that quote that no crisis, there's no wasted crisis.
There's several government officials that have said that. One that comes to my mind is Rahm Emanuel.
Yes,
he was with the Obama administration, and they said never allow a crisis, a good crisis, to go to waste. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, when you read these documents, these official documents, these are not like the stuff that you're talking about is not like something that you just came off the top of your head with. People can actually go out there and read these things for themselves. But when you hear about these things, you gotta ask yourself, is this somehow being manufactured? And I say that very carefully because, a lot of people can get offended, when it comes to the whole COVID situation. But when you think about the whole reset thing, this reoccurring thing of reset, one thing that we're constantly having dialogue about is this being used as a way to create some type of chaos so they can bring forth a new order or a reset. And so when we're looking at the face mask, when we're looking at the mandates, when we're looking at everything and the social distancing, a lot of people are confused right now. They don't know, when is this going to end? Where does it begin? And when you think about all those, the information that you just discussed, it does bring to mind, like, I'm trying to get it out here. I'm losing my train of thought, but it brings to mind just those things. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And
okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, regardless of how somebody may feel how we got here, we're here, and it is being used and taken advantage of. So with that in mind, where do you see things going? Ultimately, I believe
that things are, we are headed into a new era of some sort.
Okay.
But on the opposite end, I know that we work in the mental health field, but there's a spiritual aspect to this too, where there is a plan from man, there's also a plan from God. And so although there may be a reset in the physical coming financially, medically, God also has a reset plan for his people in this as well. But I think that spiritually, we have to have our eyes open and our ears open to hear what God is leading us to do in these times, because we can easily get swept up into all the things that are coming down the pipeline from the world, or we can be on God's agenda and how can I say it? What is it? Obedience is better than sacrifice. So we can be obedient to God in these times and have a sensitive ear to his instruction, and we can actually benefit from what's going on. So although the world may be caught up in a whirlpool of chaos, God can still have us thriving and benefiting from the chaos that's going on around us.
So it sounds like you're saying that it's safe to say that one thing that you would advise people to do is maintain or have be aware that there's more to this reality than meets the eye, and that there is a spiritual component to this, that when you recognize it and you accept it, then it makes it easier for us to maneuver through these tough times. And like you said, keep and maintain a mindset of hope and encouragement, and maintain a mindset of abundance, versus the world wants to keep you in a state of, like you said, chaos, confusion, and fear and scarcity.
And I was just going to mention is that even when you look at the news media, and that's another thing in terms in terms of mental health, we have to be careful what we continue to expose ourselves to, because let me tell you, some of the media, and I'm sure everybody knows, I think it was one person we listened to, and she made a very good point, is that it's almost like a death ticker when you look at the coronavirus. And so they're constantly reporting new cases, deaths. And so it's just constantly being pumped into our spirits constantly. It's that fear. And if you think about it, when it comes to, car accidents, or someone, dying of cancer, if they use that strategy, that death ticker constantly, people will be afraid, to even get in their cars, or even afraid of cancer. But because, like I said, the media is constantly pushing, like I said, that death ticker with coronavirus, understand what is happening, how the enemy, his strategy against the people, understand what's going on. And so if you know that, turn off the TV, get away from social, and not turn off the TV, obviously, permanently. But what we're saying is that kind of, step back a bit. And this is a time to stay close to God, because God, we know that He's declared the ending from the beginning. He knows what's ahead. He's already even told us in Revelations how these things are being, how these things are cultivating to be set up for the one world system, where eventually, we're going to come into a society where we, control.
Can't buy or sell.
I'm sorry.
Can't buy or sell.
Can't buy or sell, and that's control. That control is in with government, we would say, so that power is no longer in the hands of the people. So we got to understand where we're headed, and even you hear the words medical tyranny as well. I mean, it looks like that's where we're headed. So these are times where we really got to stay close to God. We really have to have the knowledge of God and look back at His resume, Deacon Kevin, because I'm telling you, God has never failed His people. You can even look at the times of Esther, when Haman had set out to destroy the Jews, and how God always shows up every single time. So we believe in our heart that this is a time where we really have to stay close to God, because God is going to give us strategies to fight against the economic system. Because like we talked about the economic reset, you hear so many things as far as, this COVID-19, the way it impacted the economy, that what's to come. And these are things that we're hearing. We don't know, if this is the case, but what's to come is going to make the coronavirus, the economy situation, that's going to make it look like a walk in the park. So God can give us strategies. God can, He's always ordering our steps, and as we stay in tune with Him, He's showing us exactly what to do in these times.
Wow, it sounds like you gave a couple of tips. When it comes strategies, when it comes to maneuvering through some of these tough times, like mitigating and managing a lot of the content and the messages that you allow into your life. Like you said, you don't have to completely get rid of TV, even though I know some people who have done that and do that, but in TV, social media, managing these tools and not allowing these tools to manage you.
Yes.
And really reflecting and thinking about how much we're consuming, and how that's affecting our mindset and affecting our heart set, and ultimately affecting us physically. You take in so much junk, then your body takes that on, and it is manifested in so many ailments and sicknesses that I know a lot of people may be experiencing. number one, like you said, mitigating the messages that we receive and consume. And then you talked about really taking the time to really get to know God and taking the time to really sit down and have those moments of meditation, have those moments of prayer, have those moments of conversation that help you not only know, keep your discernment high, you know, and help give you understanding so that you'll know, like you said, how to act and how to move and behave in these times. When you was talking, I was thinking of First Chronicles 12:32, when it talked about in the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do. The heads of them were two. And so it just talked about the sons of Issachar, where if you really need to know what was going on, I guess you would call one of them, because they had understanding and they were aware. And then when we was talking about the Bereans searching out the scriptures, that's another thing that came to mind when you were talking, April and Antonio, and talking about the system that we're already in. I don't know if we realized it or not, but we're already in the B system. It's just that it gets more efficient at what it does. Does that make sense? So
absolutely,
all the empires and stuff that's come along in the past have all been variations and manifestations of what we see in Revelation as far as the system and way things are set up. It's just that it gets repackaged and it gets better at what it does, to the point to where we are entering into what the World Economic Forum called, the Great Reset, into the fourth industrial revolution, to where we're going to have AI managing us versus people. And robots and computers, they don't feel, they just do.
Well, it's funny you say it too, Kevin, because that's the almost the mindset that when you think about media, when you think about the atmosphere of the country right now, it's almost like they're trying to hand us or get us to adopt a robotic type of mind, a robotic type of way that we operate. I've heard this term called lockstep, in terms of getting everybody on one accord and standing 6 feet apart and basically not thinking, just doing by command of what the media say, not what God says, not what his commandments are.
Or even to be a free thinker,
to be a free thinker. And so when you, like you said, a robot doesn't feel. And there's a coldness almost in the atmosphere at this time that if you dare be a free thinker, if you dare question anything that you're being told to do, don't research. You better not go Google and find your own information. You do what we told you to do here on mainstream media wise. then there's a mob mentality in the land right now. And I'm not speaking about everybody, but there's a mob mentality to where if you go against the grain of, something's not right about this mask thing. I don't feel comfortable. I can't breathe. My children are scared. It's a mob mentality that comes against the individual at this time that wants to put you back in a place of that robotic mindset, to not feel or think, just do. And so, God can give us that. We have a heart of flesh and blood,
So just, it sounds like you're saying, just realizing that as a human being, we all have autonomy, and we have the God-given gift to self-rule and self-govern, with respect to the collective, to the larger society. So we have to keep that in sight and keep that in mind, and we have to manage that relationship between self and then culture and in the larger community. We just talked about where we see things going if they keep trending in this direction. You mentioned lockstep. That's actually in a document. I don't know if you knew that. As far
it is.
It's in a document. I think it was a couple of years ago, to where they where different scenarios were discussed, and lockstep was one of 4, I think. But what we see now is the lockstep scenario, to where you have media, you have the medical community, you have all the communities all in agreement and lockstep. And if you go against that, if you go against that agreement, then you are disparaged. You know, you're kind of shunned.
Social
You know,
shaming, yes.
Mhm.
would you say shaming?
Social shaming. They use that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
That is a very effective and popular tool that is used in the
Yes.
social world, social shaming.
Mhm.
So how do you develop the mindset of resistance, the mindset of resilience during these tough times? I guess we're speaking from a biblical Christian perspective today.
Yeah.
So
And
as followers of Christ, seeing where we discern things are going, how do we develop a mindset of peace, a mindset of resilience, and a mindset that, like you said, maintain that you don't have to have fear, but realize that we live in abundance? How do we do that? You know, you talked about managing the tools that we allow in our lives and the messages. You talked about realizing that there's more to this world than meets the eye, that there is an ultimate spiritual reality to things. And you talked about prayer, meditation. You talked about getting into God's word. What are some other things?
Well, if I could make just kind of add to that, Dick and Kevin. So here's the thing I thought was very interesting, you know, especially in the last times when Matthew, or excuse me, Christ was talking to the disciples, and he was talking to them because they asked him, you know, tell us about the times, and, you know, referring to the end times. And Christ said, the first thing he said, and I always hold to this, because he said, take heed that no man deceive you, correct? So in these times, my prayer for myself and my family, my husband, is, Father, help us to amplify our discernment in these times, because there is a mass deception going on. There is things that are going on behind the scenes, right? And so, and you know, there's so many distractions going on, Dick and Kevin. I'm sure you can attest. There's so many voices speaking about what's going on, or you know, what to do, and you know, you hear so much stuff on social media. And so I just want to go back to, I've been, you know, God's been showing me some things in his word. And when I was looking at Elijah the prophet, when he was running from Jezebel, and how he, you know, God had made provision for him, and he told him to go to a place. He went to this place, and you had the earthquake, the fire, and I just get to my notes, but basically God was in he was in none of those big things. He was in the small, still voice. So through that, like we said before, and we're just adding to what you're saying, and this is a time, and I believe God has carved out this time for us to really stay close to him in these times. Because if you notice, when Elijah was obedient and he went through, God had given him specific instructions on what to do in the situation. He said, I want you to anoint Elisha in your stead. I want you to anoint, I think it was Jehu. I want you to know, and they're going to deal with the situation. So God had given him instructions. You see what I'm saying? In that time period. I always go back to, because like I said, there's a lot of distractions. You know, one of my foundational scriptures in this time, in this season, is, blessed is the man that maketh the Lord his trust. You know, we've got the presidential debate going on, and we've got, you know, the election, and everybody's, you know, and I'm just kind of going off of, you know, some people are hoping that, you know, Trump is going to be the answer, hoping that, you know, Biden's going to be the answer, but blessed is the man that maketh the Lord his trust, right? And it says, cursed is the man that trusts in man and trusts in, you know, horses and chariots and all those different things, you know, wealth and power. We got to trust God in these times, and we got to trust that God is going to lead us, and he's going to give us. There's another foundational scripture, I'm sorry, but he said, I will teach you. He said, I will instruct you. I will teach you in the way you should go, and I will guide you with my eye. And that scripture applies to these times. And the only way that we can do that is, like I said, if we stay close to him, guard our hearts, for out of it are the issues of life. And so, putting on the whole armor of God when we step out of this house, these are things that as the people of God, we know better. We know how to gird up. So yeah.
Man, you went down a whole litany of things, talking about the armor of God and making sure that you know where your trust lays. Like you said, it's very easy to get caught up in the current events with, like you said, with respect to the presidential debates and looking at some of the things that's taking place in politics. How many of us at times do place our trust, not realizing it, in the office or in the person that is stepping into the office, regardless of where you sit on the spectrum of philosophical political views. So just realizing that ultimately we want to place all of our trust in God and live out life the way we deem necessary. That's good for everybody involved, from self all the way out to community. But ultimately realizing that there's more. We got to think first and foremost about our spiritual walk and our spiritual involvement. When you were talking, I was thinking about community. Mm-hmm. How important is community and friends and family and loved ones during these tough times, but just in general, I guess, just I'm thinking about the populations that you guys serve. How important is community, especially in what we're going through now? How important is community?
I think it's actually this whole pandemic situation is actually brought us back to what matters the most, which is family, community, which is something that I think over the past several years this country has kind of gotten away from. I think we've gotten away from that pillar of having a family in our society. But just to kind of talk from a personal standpoint, one thing that this has allowed us to do is to kind of stow away. Our house has become our sanctuary, in a sense that now we have Bible studies more. We sit down with our children on the weekends and we read the word, and we're learning the word together, and we're becoming closer together because now we're turning to the scriptures for answers as a family. People are looking for answers, and sometimes you may have an individual in your family that has more knowledge of the word, and so my father-in-law, he's been coming over and he's been doing Bible studies with us and sharing with us his knowledge and wisdom, and it's actually been helping us and challenging us more to grow and learn and read. And so right now, I think it's just a time to come together. When you look at the people in the Bible, when you look at the word, it says that there's strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers. And so I believe that God is repositioning our minds back to the pillar of the family. Do you want to add to that?
I was just going to add because I know your job, like you guys really have done a lot in terms of, strengthening the community, William Wells Brown. And anyways, I was just going to add to that, because you all have done like the back to school. And here's the thing, I'm going to say this from a spiritual standpoint too, and then I'll go back to community. We, like I said, as the people of God, we have the knowledge of God. You know what I'm saying? So we are the light. We are the city upon a hill that cannot be hidden, right? The salt that has not lost its savor. That's the position that we are in. And I'm trying to get the specific scripture. Isaiah 60 some chapter. And I forgive me, but I will give you what it says. It's when darkness covers the earth and deep darkness the people, but the Lord God will arise over you. His glory, his light arises over us. And so we're to stand up. We're to be in position to help those out in the world that, are looking for answers. We are to tell them about Christ. And we are to show the love of Christ. What does that mean? What does that look like? financially or
Mhm.
because you all have done some things like, I mean.
Yeah, this is a time we've had more families in need. School that I work with more than any other time. There's a lot of parents that have been faced with a situation that they've never dealt with before, and being that they have to facilitate their kids' education at home. And some of these families don't have the perfect setup. They don't have the father in the household, or they don't have that extra adult to help out. And some parents are in a situation where they have to choose between their job and staying home right now. And so it is a time where community matters the most. And we've seen it at the school where I work, in our FRC, in being able to help out financially, and all the community partners have been able to help out with the families in need right now. I think it's a time where we've truly seen how much community matters, because people are in positions where they've lost their jobs. People are in a position where they can't depend on daycare, and they have to be in their child's life more than ever. And because of that, they're dealing with mental health issues at the time. I've talked to several parents that, for lack of better words, I'm going crazy sitting here with my kids all day at home, and they need an outlet.
Yes.
And so anyway, I'm just throwing those things out there right now, because we find ourselves in a position to where we realize we really need to rely on each other more in our communities. We've been more reliant on the system. The system shows us that it can fail, that there can be a breakdown in the system. And if we don't have strong communities, then we're totally reliant on a system that's not necessarily governed by God, but God created the community, the people. And so we're seeing the importance of that right now. And I'm sorry.
And I just wanted to just to kind of reference so that I'm not misunderstood. But it's Isaiah chapter 60, verse 2. So, for behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. So that's, we've got to be strong, and we've got to, strengthen not only the body, we all, be, because we're like-minded brethren, and we, strengthen each other, but even those out in the world, in the community. And it's not just words, but also, showing the love of God during these times. Because I'm telling you, people, we know that the suicide rate has went up, depression, all these things have and that's something that the media actually has not talked about. And so, these are things, when we get into the presence of God, I believe God will reveal these things to us and show us how to, how to address these things.
Yeah, wow, you really hit on it. And what I would gather from some of the things that you said is that community is very important when it comes to having an outlet to express, some of your thoughts and some of the things that you're dealing with. Community, in your community, hopefully you can find a safe place to let out some of the things that needs to be vented. If it's not allowed to vent, then it turns inward to where like you said, you have moments of depression, which could lead to suicide, could lead to a whole host of other ailments and things that we don't want somebody to have to stay in and deal with. Community also allows for, like you said, a default system, a default welfare net that allows you to mess up. If you mess up, if you got community, then you have support. So having a strong community, from what you're saying, is something that is very much needed when you need during times like this. Also, something that came to mind is using the community to allow for you to have some personal space. When you made the statement of my kids are driving me crazy, if you got somebody in the community where your kids can go to for a little bit, even during this current time period, then that's definitely good. I know, and what I do every day, I see it all the time, to where I can see where kids are, kind of off doing their kid thing, and it allows for pressure to be relieved inside the household. I mean, you can only stay in solitary confinement for so long, regardless of what's going on. in the world.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's something, that's a pattern that I've seen. But one thing that this has brought to my attention too is, unfortunately, some kids, some adults are living in a community where they don't have anyone to rely on.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the reality that we're living in today. That sometimes the decisions that we make for our lives, we're not prepared for a crisis. We're not prepared for the next thing that's coming down the pipeline. And so one thing that I hope maybe this will help some individuals do a self-reflection on their life and begin to make decisions to set their family up to be in a better position for when crisis like this happen. If you're living in a poverty situation, and all of a sudden now you have this whole pandemic going on and you can't leave the house, your community's unsafe to live in.
It's impacting the economy.
It's impacting the economy. It leads to a very depressing type of atmosphere situation. And so, for those that don't have a great community or a lot of family to rely on, I would urge them to turn to the Word of God.
Okay.
God in prayer. And once again, it's time to quiet yourself. It's the best time in the world to quiet yourself from the media. There's really some of the distractions that we're used to, like sports and all those different type of things, have kind of calmed down.
Yep.
And quiet your soul. And you used a good analogy talking about Elijah.
Mm-hmm.
It was God's voice was in the stillness. It was in the quietness. And so God's telling us, get quiet, listen to my instruction, because this thing is more spiritual than physical. And so that's the true answer for those that are looking for an answer. And it was like, well, I don't know what to tell you right now, but God has the answer. And so, anyway.
And I was just thinking about the veterans that, we encounter, especially there's this, we have the homeless population as well. And so they were really being affected by this whole situation, because there were some people that actually were, lost their apartments, were evicted. But at this point, because, hey, before we can let you into the Hope Center, or we can let you into St. James Place or any of these transitional housing, you have to be tested first. So, these people, were having to choose between, some of them had dogs, some veterans had dogs. And so, hey, it was, a choice between either I'm going to, have my dog in at the Hope Center, or I'm going to or not at the Hope Center, sleep in the car, or go to the Hope Center. And so, there's just a lot of little things that, we really don't, this behind the scenes that we're not looking at. What point was I going with this? I'm sorry. Hold on one second. So what we're seeing is, here's the thing, these things, people are homeless, and they're having to actually stay on the streets until they can get tested for COVID before they can even allow them to get into the shelters. Now we did have a grant where, we were putting people up in the Red Roof, hotel or a motel room, what have you, things like that. But here's the thing, not only we've got the homeless veterans, but we have, veterans who have, that were actually lost their jobs, and we're going through that, process of unemployment. So that was a monster in itself. And so people were not getting their income, not people, but, there were some veterans that were not getting their unemployment checks. And so they were facing financial crisis, and, just all these little things that and here's the thing, in turn impacts your mental health. You're talking about, people are dealing with anxiety, again, depression. So, the whole thing, the whole gamut of, how it has impacted, how coronavirus, this whole reset, I should call it reset, how it has impacted people, on so many facets, so many levels.
Yes. So it sounds like, the initial thing is to be that point of hope. And like you said, Tony, if you can't do anything else, point somebody in the direction of just saying inwardly, help, I need help. Pointing somebody in the direction of just crying out, or inwardly saying, you know what, I need help. And with that mindset, get up and move, get up and find some help while you're asking for help. So just don't stay where you're at. And so just having that mindset to acknowledge that you need help, that can be hard when it comes to pride and for many people. And then
I was going to mention, Deacon Kevin, that the one thing that I will say that I've seen is that I've seen so many community agencies that have went above and beyond to meet the need of, for my population. I can only speak for my population. And then I take that back, for even the community. Because I've seen where, the sheriff's office has said, hey, give me those elderly people that, due to COVID, they're not able to get, come out, leave their homes. Give me those names and we'll deliver food baskets to them personally. We've seen so many community agencies that have, addressed those that, are having financial issues. And I mean, it's an awesome thing to see that, how sometimes an opportunity like this, how it can, really, bring people together and really strengthen community like we just talked about. So, yeah. Man.
So cultivating hope and that's very important. Well, in closing, I definitely appreciate, you guys coming on and just talking about some ways to maintain our mental health during the Great Reset, during tough times, during this shift and the way things are going. And so first and foremost, realizing that there's more to what's going on that meets the eye, and asking for discernment and open eyes to be able to see, and making sure that we mitigate and manage the tools that we use and the messages that we receive. We didn't talk about it, but taking in good food helps. I
did. I wanted to mention that, if I can throw that in there right now, because one of the biggest things that we're hearing, COVID is impacting people with comorbidities and the elderly. And I urge anyone who this might get out to start taking interest into your health, invest in your health. You may pay more on the front end, but you'll save more on the back end. And so this is a time where we got to get our health in check. And so there's so many websites, and we listen to a gentleman called the Minister of Health and Wellness, and there may be some things you agree or disagree with, but there's plenty meat to take off the bone. And so this is a time too, while things, you can quiet yourself and get away from the world, start looking into health, vitamins, supplements, all those different type of things. And that's something that we do.
And I'm just going to say, and it's very interesting because, you've got your medical experts. Some of them, some panels are speaking on, how do we build the immune system? How do we support the immune system? Yep. But I want to point this out, that it goes beyond, the efforts go beyond the mask. You know what I'm saying? So just because, they're saying, okay, the mask is going to be, that's the one way to fight against, COVID. And no, you have to, don't go by what people, again, and I shouldn't say, I want to be careful how I say that, but here's the thing, the efforts go beyond that. And so we take zinc, we take vitamin C. These things help to support the immune system.
It's the immune system is what God gave us. We have a defense mechanism built in. I think when God created us, he knew what he was doing. He knew what we was going to face. And so he didn't make us, we may bend, but we don't break, especially the people of God. And if we put in the medicine foods of God, I'm going to use that term that I've heard from someone. Those are your natural foods, doing green smoothies, getting those leafy greens in your diet somehow. When you do those things, you build the immune system. And we just want to urge people, once again, it is your option, but do your research, because, when we look at the things like the vaccines and all that, it is people's options, but do your due diligence and find out what's in the vaccine before you take it. You can't be an advocate of something that you haven't done your research about. And so you do your research, do your due diligence, and it's very eye-opening for those that do their research.
And I just wanted to add just to what I'm just saying, I'm sorry, because in my prayer time, that's one of the things that God has just been dealing with us on. And here's the thing, we already know it, but God is really putting emphasis on being managers, stewards of everything that God has given to us. And that includes our health. So we can't expect to, we can eat any kind of thing, any kind of way and expect our immune system to be at its full capacity. We can't, that's unrealistic here. And so God he's really emphasizing this time for us. I'm going to say that everything that he's given, even not only in the natural, but even in the spiritual. And so we can even break that down to, our home, managing our homes, learning to be good managers of our homes, our health, learning to be good managers even of our marriage. We have to learn, to be good stewards of our marriage God has given to us. God has established our jobs, our children, even anything in our relationship with God, our prayer time, our meditation time on the scriptures, our fasting. We've got it, guys. We have, learning how to be good managers of these things, that as the people of God is saying, be consistent, do your research. Don't go by just what man is telling you to do. Look at these things for yourself and say, okay, and seek God. So,
And I'll say this and let you close out, Kevin. But again, the title kind of is reset is what we're talking about. Well, it's time to reset ourselves spiritually with God.
Yeah.
The number one thing, and this time, the best thing that you can do is reset your life with God. And that means that anything that you need to come clean to God about, come clean to God, confess. Whatever it is you need to do to get right with God, now is the time.
Now's the time.
Because if you pay attention to the signs of the season that we're in, if biblically, if you look at God's calendar, we're definitely drawing near to those last days that are always, been talked about for so long. But I would urge anyone to get right with God spiritually and get prepared and get ready for his return.
You talking about the feast days?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're in the fall.
So we're in the fall feast. So
that's another conversation that we're going to have, as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That just, open up a whole different can of worms when you said that the fall feast and the end being the ending of an era, transitioning, not end as in this is the cutoff and everything goes dark and black.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pretend like you didn't say managing fasting because I don't like the fast.
Yeah, but God's calling his people higher. I'm telling you, Deacon Kevin. I'm telling you. And
but in closing, thanks for coming on. We had a conversation talking about mental health and how to manage our mental health during the Great Reset, but not only through the Great Reset, just in life in general, through tough times and good times, making sure that we stay peaceful, having a perspective of abundance, and just staying hopeful, encouraged, and inspired to aspire to the next level, maybe through fasting. I don't know. And just how to thrive through tough times. Mm-hmm. So thanks for joining us. I'm sure this won't be the last of our conversations.
Thanks for having
me. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Peace out.